Welcome into WTOL 11 Sports Extra. I am Jordan Strack. It is episode 5 this week. We are joined by the head coach of the Rossford Bulldogs, Todd Drusback. Todd, you and I have known each other for a long time. We've been hanging out for a long time doing this. I'm excited, though, to just sit and talk football and life for the next roughly 30 minutes or so. First off, just kind of give me how did coaching start for you? Like, when did you know that coaching was something that you were interested in?
Yeah. Good question. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
First off, a lot of pressure. I heard Hardman was on before me.
Chris Hardman, listen, you can try
Jeez,
to...
Pete's, which is a legend, Hall of Famer, and I have to follow him.
Yeah.
And so hopefully no tough questions.
Yeah, he just turned 71. You're almost 71.
Yeah, I feel like I'm almost 71. Yeah.
I'm kidding. You've got a long time left in this thing. But,
I hope so.
How did it get started?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I just had such a great experience playing sports. Had great coaches. My head football coach, Coach Tom Narducci, who's still doing it now. Just had such a profound impact, not only in my life, but, my teammates' lives that, I wanted to be able to be in a position to do that as well as, to give back and mentor young adults. So that's kind of where, it first kind of started that could be a possible career path for me.
You still make the trek from Fremont every single day.
I do.
How does that work? How many miles have you put on the car?
Yeah.
And does that gonna give you like some time to like decompress before you get home at the end of the day, or
it does?
What is that drive like every single day?
Yeah. Well, when I leave the home in the morning, it's usually chaos. So, and it's funny because I don't listen to anything. So
really?
No music. Now I listen to some podcasts here and there, but usually it's dead silence. Wow. I'm by myself. I'm just going to relax, get focused for the day. And then to your point, decompressing, on the way home. So when I coached at Fremont St. Joe, which is the reason I'm still in Fremont, our house is like a block from the stadium. Right. So it was really challenging. You go from coach to all of a sudden, dad in a heartbeat. And yeah, it was a hard transition because you didn't have a lot of time to decompress. So, that part of it's really nice. Now, who knows how long that's going to be? We've talked about making the move here, and my oldest is gone, and my other daughter is about ready to graduate. So we'll see what happens in the future.
You're talking about family and all those things. You had a daughter that was a kicker at Fremont St. Joe, and how did she first come to you and say, "Hey, Dad, I'm kind of interested in playing football"? And I've got an 11-year-old, and I could never imagine her coming to me and saying that she wants to play football. And I don't know what my reaction would be if she did. What was your first reaction when she said that? I'm sure it was kind of in her blood, being around it.
We never talked about it, to be honest with you. So she did a Powder Puff football game her sophomore year.
Okay.
And so I think their class beat the seniors. So anyways, after they would score a touchdown, they had to kick extra points. That's how they determined. Yeah. So her and another girl, Ella Price, did really well kicking. And the coach asked, hey, what do you think? Would this be something of interest to you? So that's how it got started. Yeah. So I had nothing to do with it. I didn't, hey, what do you think about this? So when she brought it up, I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty cool idea. Why don't you give it a try? What do you have to lose? So that's kind of how it happened.
I mean, I guess that's probably this, and I don't want to stereotype or anything, but that's probably the safest spot for her. Did you get worried though? Like if there's a block or something, she has to run somebody down. Would she have gone down and made a tackle? Or?
So I didn't get worried. Now her mother might have. So it's funny because we were just watching it the other night because it showed on my memories. It was a 1-year anniversary. Yeah. They played Tiffin Calvert. So she kicked off, and the guy broke free. And so, she had the angle, so she should have made the tackle. She dove. I mean, she laid out and just missed the tackle. But, yeah, so it's funny because my wife was videoing it, and you hear, oh, no. And so, yeah. And then my other daughter, my youngest one, the 6-year-old, is like, I hate you. Don't run. Anyways, it was comical looking back on it. But, yes, she almost had a tackle.
Oh, that's amazing. And do you let her live it down, or are you like...
Yeah, I was like, come on, you have the angle. What are you doing? Let's go. But
kickers,
no,
man.
She laid out, so it was good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
Let's talk about your team a little bit this year. You have, I would say, a stud at quarterback. I mean, he's a star, and Alex Williams. But you're off to a 2-3 start. Those first quarters, man, is it Are your pregame speeches not good enough? Is that what it is, or do you have to what's going on with those first quarters?
Do not know. So I talked the first 2 games. Week 3 was Oak Harbor. Now, week 4 was Genoa. An assistant coach, Coach Schober, gave the speech. Last week, I said, I'm not going to say a word. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes, and you guys can talk. And nothing has worked. And I told you before we got on air, it's like something bad has to happen to upset them. So we talked in our team meeting today, I don't know if I have to make up rumors that your girlfriend was with another guy and get you all upset or something, but something's got to happen to create that anger and urgency. So hopefully this is the week where we play a first quarter. But, yeah, I mean, we're getting outscored, I don't know, by 25 points. But then our second quarter, we've scored, I think, 91 points in the second quarter, like 18 points a game in the second quarter. So.
Walk me through this group a little bit. Let's talk about Alex because, I mean, he's as good as anybody in the area right now, statistically and all those things. What has made him so special the last couple years?
Boy, great work ethic, number one. Great kids, extremely humble, competitor, wants to win. So, it's all those intangibles, I think, that separates him. But his football IQ is pretty high, when we put a lot on our quarterback. We run him and we throw him, and we're in the no huddle where he's got to communicate and do all the stuff and understand pass protection, things like that. But whenever you've got a big guy that can run it and throw it, it's our job to put him in position to be successful. And boy, he's made the most of his opportunity.
How do you balance him running and throwing and not taking big hits? And because he's a solid kid, he's not gonna. It's gonna take a lot to hurt the kid. But how do you balance that as a coach? It's a delicate balance. I think that football coaches probably have had to deal with forever.
Yeah, I thought last year was rough because we had a string of injuries in the secondary. So unlike his sophomore year where he would be a rotator on defense, he played nonstop both ways. Wow. Yeah. And it was really hard, physically, it took a toll. So going into this year, we knew we needed to kind of revert back to what it was like his sophomore year because we thought we'd probably run him more, which we have this year. It's kind of being smart how we're using him on defense, giving him breaks because, he's taking a pounding running the ball. Now, we also do say, hey, Alex, you can run out of bounds, and kind of save yourself a little bit. But that's just – it's hard for him to do that. It's just not in his DNA, So when he gets to the sidelines, instead of running out of bounds, he wants to lower his shoulder and try to choke somebody. But
I think that reminds me, I was talking to Jason Candle once. We were talking about Deontay Johnson, who's now unbelievably successful in the NFL. And sometimes Deontay would take some chances on a punt return or something. And I said something to Jason, I'm like, how do you get him to not take those chances? Sometimes, he'll back up and he'll want to make a move. And Jason said to me, he said, you can't get mad at a guy for the same reason that you love him. And that always stuck with me because you love the guy because he can make all these plays. So you can't get mad at him for doing what you love him for. And I think that kind of reminds me of that. It's like that's what makes him so good. So it's hard to take that away from him. Yeah,
that's a great point. And to Alex, we've had quarterbacks that, thrown for 20 touchdowns in a year and only 2 interceptions. But they've missed some touchdowns because they weren't willing to go for it.
Yeah.
Where, I want our quarterback to read and react and go for it. I don't want you to think and overanalyze. So it's kind of like that Brett Favre gunslinger type of mentality. If you aren't willing to kind of take some chances here and there, then you're never going to make any plays. So,
you guys play a fun style of football. Is that where that kind of comes from? Is your mentality as a head coach or your offensive philosophy? Where does that all kind of come from?
Yeah, so when I was at Genoa, this is a long time ago, 2000. So it was the 2001 coaches clinic and the state clinic. So
was Mike Vickers at Genoa? Then,
no, I was the head coach.
Oh, you were the head coach.
Yeah, I was the head coach. Okay. It was before a couple of them were after me.
Okay.
It was actually after Jeff Ward. I followed Jeff Ward.
Okay.
Jeff Wood.
Yeah.
So we listened to Urban Meyer so he had just got the head job at Bowling Green, and he drew up 4 verts in the spread, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then Rich Rod, who was at West Virginia, was explaining the zone read and how it all came about. So when he was at Tulane and Sean King was the quarterback, they were running zone, and he didn't give it to the running back. He ran around the end, and he's like, well, what are you doing? He's like, well, I saw the end, going to make the tackle, so I just pulled it and ran. And that was how the zone read came about. Wow. And I'm like, man, that's really, really cool. So our second year at Genoa, we went kind of half and half. Spread and back then, young coach, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, so apologize to those guys. And I have when I've seen them. But, I went to Edgerton, and then we were full spread. And then kind of looked at no huddle and did some research. And, the research of the no huddle, and everyone said, oh, you got to be in shape to, run that no huddle. And, if you don't huddle, you save so many yards from our receivers jogging back and forth to the huddle, our linemen going back and forth to the line of scrimmage. So you're actually saving your legs for no huddling.
That's interesting.
And then we looked at it from, taking a snapshot of the defense before we call the play. So that's kind of how initially we got started on it. And then it just kind of evolved over the years based on personnel. Then all your different RPOs and zone reads and counter reads and power reads and bubble screens and jailbreak, it just kind of evolved from there. And so now what we kind of do is, we look at, what things are we doing well, and then what are some different complements off of those things that we're doing well that we can add. So I think every week we kind of look to add, a little wrinkle here and there, but it's constantly evolving.
That's so fascinating to me. Like, you think back to, that's not that long ago. 2000 wasn't that long ago.
You don't think so? But
no, but it's 22 years ago,
yeah,
I
exactly.
guess. But when you think about how much the game of football has evolved, like where else can it go? Because we watched, Michigan went back to more a power running game last year, and we saw that it was successful at Michigan. They're still using tight ends, and they'll use a fullback once in a while, and that really worked for Michigan last year. Where does the game go next in your mind?
Yes, we just had this conversation. Coach Abby and I, who's been with me a long time, talked about the midline, and hey, we need, he's on his way to retire from teaching, coaching this year. He said, I'll be back if we run the wishbone midline. And if you look back, that was a read play. You're reading the tackle and giving to the fullback or pulling it. So conceptually, it's, all that stuff is still there. What's changed is a lot of your formations and who you're reading. Sometimes you're reading tackles, sometimes you're reading ends, sometimes you're reading linebackers. So the read game has come a long way. And then, over the last 10 years, then you're starting to get into tempo and going fast. Yeah. And then it's the clap. Yeah. And then it's the fake clap. And then check with me. And so, offensively, it's, really evolved with formations, tempo, reads, RPOs. But to your point with the tight end and going back to the tight end, stretching your D front with the tight end and spread, I think is something that's really has gained, some steam here and there too. But the bottom line is it's all conceptual. Yeah. No matter what defense you're running, no matter what offense you're running, it's about reading coverages. What's the defense trying to do to you? And then basically try to take advantage of their weak spots.
That's fascinating. How do you make sure that you're staying on top of all the changes in football, and how do you make sure you're always learning and evolving as the game is changing? What do you do to make sure that you're staying on top of those kind of things?
Well, have smart guys on staff, and we do. We have a fantastic coaching staff. A lot of them have been with me for quite some time, and we've added some along the way. So, as in life, you're only as good as the people around you, and those guys are fantastic. And I've always had the philosophy of letting those guys coach. And they have ideas. You need to listen to those ideas and go with them. But I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the Northwest Ohio Coaches Association. We've had an advisory board for a long time that I've been a part of. So I get to pick a lot of coaches' brains, a lot of college coaches' brains. So I think, and watching it, watching the game and studying it and seeing how it works. And at the same time, you need to keep it simple too.
Yeah.
And I think when I first got into coaching, you get so enamored with the X's and O's of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is, the psychological part and building relationships and, kids' psyche and playing loose and being confident and all those things. So, it's about, having enough, but yet being simple so your kids aren't thinking at the same time.
So this might feel awkward for you, but like in my position, like I hear like everybody's opinions on other coaches or whatever. I have never had one person ever say a negative thing about you. Todd, I'm telling you.
You haven't talked to my wife? You haven't talked to Amy? I'm just kidding, Amy.
No, I've never had a coach ever say a bad word about you, and that's extremely rare. How are you such a likable dude? Like, because you are.
You're laying it on thick
listen,
now.
no, I'm being
Come on
serious.
now.
Like you're a likable dude. Like, and I've known you for a long time now. And like, how does that how does that all happen?
First off, I appreciate the compliment. I don't know if I believe all that stuff.
Listen, I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it.
I will say, I've gotten into coaching and teaching to help kids, and then in other things that I'm a part of, and I know you're big in giving back, and I've been a part of the nonprofit sector for quite some time. I guess my goal is to be a servant to others and to help others, right? So as you go through things in life and you meet people and you have a family, and you coach a bunch of kids, I guess my perspective has changed quite a bit where, when I talk to kids, I'm trying to see things through their perspective. I think as adults and people alike, you see things through your perspective. But, why does so-and-so, why are they acting a certain way? There's obviously a reason why maybe a kid's getting in trouble. So finding out, the reasons, what's going on, why is this stuff happening? And then it's, my job to, try to help those kids. So I guess to your point, which is very kind words, we're all kind of in this together, in this fraternity, and it's tough. It's tough because, it's tough being a kid in today's day and age, with social media and the internet, and there's just a lot on kids' plates. And so I guess it's our job as coaches to, be there for one another to try to help kids. And I know we want to win football games, but I think as coaches, we want to see 10 years from now, did we do our job? So maybe we went 5-5, but, we have players that are great husbands, great parents, and are successful in what they do. And so I think ultimately that's what we want to do. So I guess, I respect all coaches, and just appreciate what they do for kids. I don't know if that answered that question.
See what I mean? He's likable. Now, how do you still relate to kids? Like, because I asked Chris Hardman this because I thought he had such an interesting perspective, like starting in the 70s coaching and coming to now. You haven't been doing it quite that long, but like kids from 2000 to 2022, kids are very different. Like my high school experience is not what kids are going through today. How do you still relate to kids and make sure that you stay, I don't want to say friends with them, but like stay understanding what they are going through?
Yeah, good question. Talking to them, like getting to know them, kind of, what we talked about before. If you understand kids, and if there's, let's just say, making a mistake in class and you're having a conversation on what's going on and they share stuff with you, it allows you to, understand things that they're going through. And so you can relate to them a little bit more. Whenever we have conversation with kids, whether it's good or bad, or we have to give them consequences, I want them to know that I care about them. That, I have to do this because you need to understand accountability and responsibility, but you also need to know I care about you too. And I'm going to be with you every step of the way, no matter what. And so I think when you show kids care and concern, no matter what stage you are, like Coach Hardman back in the 70s or in the 2000s. I think building trust and rapport, if kids know you generally care about them, then they're going to work hard for you.
You brought up the giving back piece, and you've been part of Parker's Purpose. And if people don't know Parker Inc.'s story, Google it because it's incredible. But you've been part of Parker's Purpose and helped start this thing at the very beginning. Go back to the beginning for me when you first met Parker. And I think that's kind of all ties into this. Like, you had him helping out he came out and joined you guys at Fremont St. Joe. And he's like, you've never left his side. Like, why did he make such an impression on you?
So it all was started. He was a third grader in my wife's class. And Amy said, hey, I have this cool kid. Do you think there's a role for him on the football team? And so we came up with kicking ball and T-boy because he's in a wheelchair and he has little movement in his hands. So after we would kick off, he'd go out there on his motorized wheelchair, put the tee on his tray. And really, kickers like, certain kicking balls, right?
Yeah.
And so we always knew where it was. It was right there. So, we'd have to yell, where's the tee? And, Parker already had it. And then he evolved in pregame speeches. And then March 2008, he was life-flighted. We got a phone call from Sister Adele, who was one of the teacher assistants in his class. Respiratory distress. I remember visiting him the next day. He's got tubes all over him.
Yeah.
He was awake. He's got a tube in his mouth, jersey hanging, and just said, hey, you've got a purpose here. You got to still fight. And I remember he grabbed my hand and looked into my eyes. And it was one of those divine intervention moments.
Yeah.
At the same time, his mom, Patty, was supposed to start chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So they couldn't work. And so all I did was we went back to Fremont St. Joe. I sent out this big email and tried to start an email chain to get a prayer chain going. And just at the end, hey, if you want to donate, and, heck, all the scammers are out there now, but we started getting checks. We did a couple fundraisers. Miraculously, he recovered. And then after June, we had a big dinner auction for the family. The group of us got together, and it's like, why should we stop now?
Right.
From a near tragic position, it was such uplifting for myself and all of us involved that all these people came out to help. That why shouldn't we keep the giving going? And that's kind of how it was formed.
And it's incredible, like, all these years later. How many years has it been now?
This is our 15th year. 15th, yeah.
Gosh, it's 15 years.
So you got a big role next year now.
Well, listen, you know I'm always into help.
I appreciate it.
I will do anything you need. You know that. But like, it's remarkable to watch how this thing has grown because, like, I mean, you've brought in some big names to come speak out at the benefit dinner. And this has become a pretty cool thing. Like, it's neat to see, and it's so inspiring because, like, watching Parker grow up, and we've all kind of got to watch him grow up just because he's always been in the spotlight, and he's turned it into like this incredible interview. And like, I remember the other day or a couple months ago when we interviewed him, I walked in, I was like, holy cow, like, he's a great freaking interview now.
Yeah.
Like, he's so good. And he's funny and he's witty and like charming, and it's just evolved into such a cool thing. And like, to watch him grow up, it's been neat for everybody, I think, because we've got to watch him grow up kind of publicly over all these years.
Yeah, and you talk about, changing your perspective.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, so, it has, because you look at him, he's in a wheelchair. Can never play football, can never do this. But every time you see him, he's in a great mood.
Yeah.
Great interview. And so it definitely has changed the way that I coach, it changed the way that I parent. And it's taught me to, take advantage of your God-given talents. Yeah. Don't complain and whine about, things that are tough and things that you can't do. Yeah. All you have to do is look at him, and then, we've been fortunate enough to help a lot of families, and you meet a lot of these families. Yeah. So it does put things in perspective that while we're here, we need to make the most out of our opportunities to take advantage of what we have to offer.
And you guys have helped so many. Like, give me some of the numbers here, because you've helped so many families since this thing started, and the numbers are like eye-popping, staggering. What are the numbers? Like, how many families in dollars?
It's hundreds. I'm sure it's over 500. I know we're over 600,000 in grants given, and we're really proud of that. And a lot of people have, played their part in it. And there's, tons of applications that we get every month.
Yeah.
So, we're excited for the future. He's definitely been our guy leading the charge. If it wasn't him and for his energy and spirit, we wouldn't be where we're at.
Can you give the website real quick, just so that if anybody's interested right now, they can go to the website?
It's www.parkerspurpose.net. We just opened our grant cycle, so any families that have kids with life-altering illnesses or disabilities can get online and apply. And we're always looking for corporate sponsors. We're very fortunate to have Express Professionals, McNulty McKay, and Welty Financial. We're also, looking for more, because we don't give to everyone that applies.
Yeah.
We just don't have those
That's
types of funds. Yeah, but if we did, we would definitely get it. The need is out there, especially now.
Sure.
Today's day and age, there's such a need. So appreciate any support anyone can get.
For sure. All right. Last couple minutes here. We'll get back to this football thing. You're sitting at 2-3 right now. Is there still time for you guys to get this thing figured out and get into the playoffs and still do some of the things that you had hoped for?
I would say no if we didn't have a chance of winning those games. We spotted Port Clinton 23 and lost by 7.
Which was just a crazy game.
It was crazy.
Game.
And then, Carver, it's a 7-point game at the end. They scored a couple touchdowns with a minute and a half left. And then, we're up 28-14 mid-third. They score with 40 seconds left. So, we feel like we have played, as well in stretches that we've played in a long time. We just have to have a little bit better consistency. But, we feel like we're right there. We just got to clean up some of the mistakes and get off to a better start. But we definitely can make a run.
And when you have the quarterback piece, like, I feel like that's what everybody's searching for at every single level of football. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Like, to have that one in place, that's such a key thing. At some point, though, like, Alex Williams does have to graduate. Like, do you look into the future? Like, do you watch down the pipe to see, okay, I've got, maybe the future, I've got this, I've got that. Do you pay attention to that stuff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. Yep, we'll be okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's what I was at.
Yeah,
that's
we'll
what I
be
was
fine.
waiting for.
Yeah.
That's what I was waiting for to see, if what the pipeline looks like and how you feel.
Yeah, we've been fortunate we've had some pretty good ones, and I think it's the philosophy has been put an athlete there.
Yeah.
And if you can't throw it, we'll teach him how to throw it. But, it puts such a strain on the defense when you have someone that can run and throw it, and then you spread them out. And so, really, it's a game-to-game thing whether we're going to throw it or run it more. It just depends on how they're going to defend us.
Sure.
So if you didn't have that dual threat, it could really handicap you.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you say, like, we're just going to throw an athlete out there, and if we have to teach him to throw, we can teach him. Like, not everybody thinks that way. I think a lot of people kind of like pigeonhole themselves into, well, we need a quarterback that can do this. Like, it's a different, maybe a little different philosophy. Just get a good athlete in there.
Well, I think you talked about the game evolving.
Yeah.
There's still counters. There's still powers. The difference is you had a fullback that kicked out the end.
Right.
Now we eliminate that guy from the box, which eliminates the defensive guy from the box, and we read the guy.
Right.
Now, if you eliminate the running back, now
Sure.
we have a running back, but if you go 5 wide, you could have a slot, which is like a fullback. Now they have to figure out, are we treating that guy like a fullback? Are we going to keep a guy in the box, or are we going to remove a guy from the box? So then it becomes that chess match of, well, what are they going to do? And then we'll wait and see what we're going to do. But you got to have the guy that can run it.
Are you still calling plays this year?
I am not.
I had heard that.
Coach Schobers.
I had heard
job.
heard that you had given up play calling.
I did.
Dude, was that painful?
I felt it was needed. I felt like the head coaching role has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so I felt like being an offensive coordinator and a head coach, it's time consuming because all weekend you're tagging plays, you're watching film, you're getting a scout report, and then all week you're mapping out your script, and I felt like I didn't give players enough attention that needed it.
Interesting.
And I felt like we had someone in place that wanted to do it, that I was confident in. So I felt like it was time. It was better for the overall program to do it, and it's worked. We're scoring points. Now he'll tell you that I chirp in. And
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I chirp in.
I was going to ask.
Hey, let's do this. But I want to let him go, and he's done just a great job, along with our entire offense and defensive staff. We're giving us some points, but that don't mean the defensive staff's not doing a good job and working hard and things too. Yeah. So, and Coach Adams is doing a nice job there. So, but yeah, I did give it up. And I'm glad I did. I really am, because I can see things through a different perspective now too. When you're calling it, you're always, down in distance, what hash, and you're calling plays, and you can't really get an overview at times of seeing it. So I can move down to the other end and watch. And so when I say certain things, knock on wood, usually it's dialed up pretty good.
I was wondering if maybe late game situations or something you're kind of chirping in because listen, I mean, ultimately the buck stops with you. You're the head coach. When the guys are going over to Moe's afterwards and they're complaining about somebody, it's the head coach they're complaining about.
That's right.
They're not complaining about anybody but you. So, I figured though late game situations or you're on the headset like hey I'm seeing this, or maybe we should do this.
Yeah, I would definitely chirp in. I do, and coach, he'll say he wants feedback, but at the same token, I want him to.
That's great.
See it and go with some of his gut instincts too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we'll leave it there. I appreciate you. 30 minutes goes by fast, man.
It is fast.
I know.
Dang.
We could sit and talk ball all day. I love doing it, but I really appreciate you coming in, and you've done unbelievable work on the field and off the field, and you're as good as it gets, so I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate the compliment, but I can say the same for you. For all that you've done for Parker's Purpose, I'm seeing, for all your Christmas and all the feel-good pieces that you do, instead of seeing all the negatives all the time, you've delivered a lot of positive stories. So I appreciate all you do too, Jordan.
Well, I appreciate you. You're the best. Thanks so much. That's Todd Drusback, the head football coach over at Rossford High School. This is Sports Extra with Jordan Strack. We'll see you back here next week.